Dogworks Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dogworks. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by First Paw Coffee Company, specializing in private label premium blend coffee. If you're serious about coffee, you should check it out. First Paw Coffee's passion is high-quality, small-batch roasted coffee. They take the extra time to taste and get everything perfect before they release new blends. They aim to bring you a cup of happiness each time you pour yourself some coffee. Find out more at ak.dog/free and enter for a chance to win some First Paw Coffee prizes, a book from our collection, and tote bag. One winner will be selected at random each month. That's ak.dog/free.
From First Paw Media, sponsored by First Paw Coffee Company, this is the Dog Driver Show. Visit our website at dogworksradio.com. Now here are your hosts, Robert Forto and Parto.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Robert and I'm here with my co-host KP, and this is the Dog Driver Show. And today we're talking to somebody that KP knows very well. His name is Ken Chezik, and he's calling in from Michigan. You guys are kennel partners together, so I assume that you have a pretty good relationship with this guy. Is that right?
Yes, this guy is actually, he's my best friend and of course kennel partner. We know each other for long time actually. And Ken, Lori, and Lori's parents, they helped us when we came to the United States to get our team going. And when we sold out our kennel in Europe, we came to the U.S. without any dogs. And those were the very, very first dogs we got. And I believe it was in early 90s, if I'm not mistaken. And they have a gigantic heritage of sled dogs also for I want to say around 40 years of racing in the Midwest. Very, very special people to me, of course. And we talk, of course, on almost every other day and during the race season, sometimes every day about what we have going on.
Well, I started in 1978, just out of high school. My neighbors, Ron and Judy Seifert, down in Lower Michigan, they had a kennel of Siberian dogs, and I would take care of the dogs while they were going for races. And then finally they said, "Hey, do you want to go some races with us?" And I did. And then I ended up getting a team from them that I ran some of their dogs in 78, going into 79. And with their Siberians, and I learned a lot from those dogs. And then right around 79, and during the races, I would see Michigan had a really good circuit at that time, and there was one kennel that was really a standout, was the Munford kennel. And Barbandale Munford owned the kennel at that time, and they were top team in our Michigan area. And, I got passed quite a few years by this one gal. Her name was Lori, and she passed me like so many times, and she drove a hard team, and she would make me go by the rules. I'd have to pull over and stop and let her by. So I was like, that's they're moving. I don't know if the confirmation got me going, but for somehow I ended up in 1979. They invited me to come up to their house and visit, and in 1980 I moved in with them, and they were a small kennel, very small at the time. Back in that time, there was probably many of the open kennels were 100 dog plus to 200 dog kennels, and we were just a small kennel, but quality is what we really focused on. And they brought me into their kennel and into their family actually, and I lived together with them for probably close to 8-9 years, and very good relationship, and we were like family. And during that time, we would probably our first time out of Michigan. We went out in 1980. Our first race out that season was Ashland, Wisconsin, and we got there, and Terry and Eddie Streeper were down from Fort Nelson, and Roland Lombard was there. Many big names, and you're sitting at a driver's meeting. You got right next door next to you is Roland Lombard and the Streeper, Eddie and Terry, and 50, I don't know how many dogs they had in the rig, many mushers from big names that you would see in history books or on the in the standings, and it was very impressive. I mean, think about being 21 years old, and traveling the circuit in the Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, going out into New York, and all these big name drivers. There were drivers who would come down from Alaska, northern Canada, and the numbers were huge. Saranac had probably 50-some teams in the open class, over 200 teams at the race, and it was an exciting time. I mean, it was very, very. All you could do was just gobble it up. Just try to learn as much as you can, and so that's where we started, and where I started. Barbandale had dogs probably in the early '70s. Lori, she was probably 16 years old when she started with the dogs, and so really, I've been in it for over 40-some years. Lori's been in it, say, a bit more than that, and the heritage from Barbandale that passed on to us was before that, in the early 70s, and I believe somewhere, like you said, somewhere around 1990, 91, you showed up at Barbandale's cabin with a turkey and a wine bottle, and that's where our friendship began. And from there on, it's been a great road.
Yeah, when we started with the Munfords, Barbandale and Ken and Lori Chezik, we were looking for to buy some dogs. So it was Thanksgiving. So I was talking to Barb Munford, and she said, "Just come on over." And I'm like, "Oh, you don't know us," but she's like, "No, come on over." So we went there, of course, with a turkey and a bottle of wine, and we had Mexican Thanksgiving. By the way, we didn't eat the turkey.
Right. Mexican Thanksgiving.
And after that, I would spend hours and hours talking to her, ask questions, tremendous amount of source of experience and knowledge, and just kind people, kind, open people, and then when was it, Ken? When you came for the limited North American? Was it 98 or 97?
Well, when as you know, Christian Tavot, he was in the U.S. and he had a team that he leased from us in 1997, and then in 1998 he wanted to go to Alaska, so I made a trip with Christian as a handler, and we took that team up to Alaska, to Fairbanks to do the limited. And, really, I didn't know anything about Alaska except from what other mushers told us. And we went with Christian, and the next year we brought our own team up, Dale and Lori and I, and you guys were there. You guys flew in, I believe. And so that was our start of our going to Alaska. And basically from 98, 99 on up till this last year, we've had a team that we brought to Alaska to race.
So earlier you learned about First Paw Coffee Company, and now I'm going to tell you about its Tail Wagger Blend. First Paw Coffee Company's Tail Wagger Blend is their first offering, and its name and label were crowdsourced from their Facebook fans. How cool is that? The Tail Wagger Blend is a private label premium blend that was developed just for them. It is a medium roast from Colombian beans with tastes of Brazil nuts, grapefruit, and oak. Be sure to go to ak.dog/free and enter to win a bunch of cool prizes. That's ak.dog/free.
So, Ken, before we get too much further, I see a thread on a lot of these interviews that we have that a lot of you guys start out with the Siberian teams first. I know KP started out that way. I started out that way. You had mentioned you had, and so many others. What is the main reason for switching over to folks that don't know about the mixed breeds that may not be mushers that are listening? What is that main reason for switching? Is it just the desire to win? What is it that requires that move over from those purebred dogs to what everybody's running now?
Well, I did have a lot of experience with the purebred dogs, just a few years with them, and they were good dogs. I mean, they were really good. I enjoyed them. But it's like everything else, you know. You always look for something different. You always want to push the envelope. You want to try to get a little bit faster. And I always had either hunting dogs or some kind of pet dog that I had, and I always had dogs that were free ran and were loose, and it seemed like when I had the Siberians, they were a little bit. They didn't really come when I called them, and then when I got the Huskies and those kind of dogs, they would, you know, train a little bit differently, and but really it was the envelope, you know. I mean, you buy a 300 horsepower car, and then man, somebody's got a 350 horse, and you just keep going up the line. I mean, because you always want to try to push the envelope a little bit farther, a little bit faster. And that goes true in the breeding. I mean, as far as breeding the dogs, you know, you go through the bloodlines, you breed this, you do that, and you're always trying to strive to be better and to get something that's the edge, you know, and everybody else is doing the same thing. So how do you get that? And the thing about the dogs is now, you know, what you breed today, you'll find out what it does 2 years from now or 3 years from now. So it's a projection, and really, it just really wasn't anything, you know, dog-wise. It was just, that's kind of what drove you in competition to be at that, to choose that direction. Excellent.
KP?
Yeah, Ken, when he raced in the Midwest, he was a wicked 10-dog driver, and when we ran 4-dog, when we did Midwest circuit also, and he ran an extremely competitive team of Alaskan Huskies then, of their own lines through, you know, I remember races in Minnesota, Cannon Falls, or Eagle River, Wisconsin, or Gaylord, and all of that. And then, like he said, we went to the Limited North American Championship. Ken ran a 10-dog team, and I ran a 4, I believe. And that was the beginning, Kenny, wasn't it?
Right, Croce. And here's kind of, you know, we raced in our own pond. We raced Michigan, Wisconsin, and we had the fortunate enough to go to Alaska and race up there. And I think the first race I raced at the Limited North American, I was 12th or 13th, and it was kind of, I was like, you know, wasn't really happy with myself, and Lori also. And then we said, you know, man, this is tough. I mean, there's very good competition. There's competition around the world here. And then we went back and said, well, you know, on the way back, we drive back from Alaska, it's 4,000 miles back, and many hours behind the wheel, and Lori would pull out a piece of paper on a tablet and say, well, what did we do wrong? What did we do right? What do we need to do better? And we would brainstorm that on the way back home. So the next year, we had the same dogs. We trained better. We trained, tried different things, and they were a husky-type dog, mostly Alaskans. And we brought them back to Fairbanks, and Fairbanks was the proving ground. I mean, we felt that the Limited North American, what we were doing was the race to choose, to decide what we did. And then we raced that second year, and I think I moved up like 2 places. And we went back again, and we were really we were disappointed in one way, but you know, with Croce researching other dogs, and the dogs that were beating us were the hound crosses at that time. And, you know, we thought, you know what, we have to do something different. I mean, over the years, we've completely changed our dog team probably 3 to 4 times completely over generations. And so we decided to, with Croce's help, we got into some dogs of the hound crosses. Jan Svensson, we bred into one of his males, and that was a start. And then Croce lined up a couple dogs for us to put in our breeding program. And we bought a dog from Mari Rado and put that into our bloodlines. But then again, it's a 2-year program to get to that. And then I think by not the next year we went back, we had pups or yearlings, and the yearlings that we had were outrunning our Alaskans that we had. So we felt that we were on the right track. And by 2 years after that, the dog team was performing very well. We had moved up into the upper. We were actually getting a trophy at that point. So it's one of those things. It's the transition. It's the keeping your mind open and not afraid to try something different, I guess, is what happened in that era for us.
Yeah, for people who are not familiar with Ken, we've talked to a lot of dog drivers. A lot of champions are usually cocky and they know they're champions. This guy, he's a champion. He is actually, I believe, the first American winning Rendezvous in 20 years, I believe it was. And but the guy is humble. He works hard and he is open. He shares his experience, his knowledge to anyone from a junior one dog scooter to whoever. And tell us a little bit of story about how you started racing open from the limited class, Kenny.
Well, funny because doing the 8 dog, 10 dog, and then one thing about Alaska, when you're racing Alaska, there's a lot of peer pressure in one way of encouraging mushers to go into the open. And Lori and I had a lot of background with open and not open, but our kennel at one time back in the early years, we were pretty much an open kennel. And then the 4 dog, 6 dog, 8 dog teams that we ran would feed into that open team. But, my first open race, we get there and I pull out my line and I got 12 dogs to hook up. And Eggle, or I think it might have been Helen, walked by me and we raced and said, why can we only run 12 dogs? And I'm like, well, I don't have a 12 dog line. I mean, ran 10 dogs and I have a 2 dog extension. So this is what I'm running is 12 dogs. And they said, well, you need to buy a bigger line. And it was kind of a joke in one way, but it was fun. But then eventually, I really wasn't that comfortable running bigger teams than at that time too, because running 8, 10 dogs is like, okay, well, 12 dogs is that's a bit. 14 dogs is bigger. 16 dogs is. I think we were at one of the races at Fairbanks, Mexican North American, and I think Croce was there. I had my line stretched down the hallway at the hotel, finishing up my 16 dog line for the race. And it's like, okay, you never do this before a race, but it's like, well, go big, go small, or go home. It's like so. Anyhow, we had but that's kind of how I got into the open thing. And once we got into it, it was another challenge, very big challenge to manage that many dogs and to build a team to do that. I mean, it's a huge amount of investment that takes to do that.
Ken, you probably have currently one of the biggest kennels, sled dog kennels in the lower 48, and you travel to Alaska and you compete. Against big names. Like you mentioned. How's the drive and how difficult it is to put a truck together and bring a truck to Alaska and live basically off the truck with your dogs for 2 months, 3 months of the year?
Well, I think last year was our 21st round trip to Alaska. And you learn something every year. The first year we went to Alaska with a team, limited team, we were in Fairbanks, and the temperature dropped to 42, 44 below zero. And I remember making a joke about it because Dale was with us that year, and he was swearing he would never go back to Alaska. And I showed a picture of him, and it's like, our Michigan thermometer doesn't even come out of the bulb in Alaska, so we got to come back with a better thermometer on the truck. But, over the years, we learned a lot of things. I mean, like, one year we were there, Eddie Streeper was there, and he had cardboard put along the doors of the box to block the vents, the openings. And it's like, that makes a lot of sense because it's 40 below and the dogs are, you want them to rest well. So the next time we built a dog box, we put insulation in the ceiling and the floor. And then we made plastic doors that we could put over the grates to kind of block off some of the ventilation or some of the opening at night. So we did that, and then which would help in the comfort of the dogs. And for our dogs come out of the south, they're very thin. They're not as acclimated as the northern breed dogs. So we had to be very careful with that. But then as the trips years go by, we learned that, when the dogs go into the truck to go north, they've got to be in good weight, good condition. And we found over the years that the trip takes a lot out of them. I mean, for us, it's 4,000 miles from here to Willow. And generally, I do all the driving. So we could do it in 6 days. We're pulling a big trailer with all our gear and stuff in it. So I never run over 16-hour day. Like our day would be, get up at 6, we got dogs out at 7, drop them, water them, make sure we're ready to go on the road before 8 o'clock. But we run till sometimes to 11, 12 o'clock at night, trying to get to our destinations. And but it's one of those things that the dogs have to come out enough times, and you have to be very careful that they're hydrated enough, that they're fed well. And there's a lot, and a lot of mushers don't understand that there's a lot of stress that happens with the dogs. That and for us, I swear by the time we get back, I think I lose, if not a week for sure, if not 2 weeks of training. I have to sit back and basically start back to bring the dogs back up to where we left off at. So it takes its toll on them. But then again, you have to adjust and you have to allow the dogs to recover from that trip.
Kenny, coming to Alaska, do you think is this the reason to race among the best in the world? Is that the reason you are doing this trip, the sacrifice of driving all the way up 4,000 miles in, 4,000 miles back?
I could tell you one thing, without a doubt. It's the only one of the main reasons why I go. To go to the best competitions there, the best trails, the best purses. I mean, it's what you go for. I mean, you want to go to the Kentucky Derby, you want to go to the hometown race, that's there. That's what drives you, because you go there, you race against the top competition, whether it's the streepers, your team, whichever team it is. Everybody wants to be first. I mean, we all want to be the best we can be. I mean, in our own world. I mean, and that's the thing is you don't get Eggle Ellis. I mean, there's been many times I've been on trail, and all of a sudden Eggle comes out of nowhere and blows past me, and I'm going, what the heck? And with 7 dogs, and you as you go, let's just say, for instance, as he goes by, you study the dog team, you study the driver. You try to pick up every little bit of thing that you can learn from them. Blaine, Buddy Streeper, I've chatted with him many times. I rode with him last year on the drive run at the Rendezvous. We're chatting about this and that, and I ask him about this on the race course, and he tells me exactly what he does. And, he's no bull on that. He'll tell you straight up on the stuff. And I would do the same thing, because we're kind of a breed apart, we kind of look out for each other. It's almost like a brotherhood on stuff like that. So, yeah, you talk stuff on one way, but then on the race course, it's a different thing. We're out there to try to do our best.
Kenny, I have to ask you one other question about that travel to Alaska before we ask that final question that we always do. Over all of the months that we've been doing this, we hear a lot of folks that say they make that drive north to Alaska every year to run in the Rondi and the Onak and all of those. What about those, and this is more of an overall question versus a question to you directly, what about those middle of the pack guys that don't have any chance of winning? Why do they make the drive up, and how the heck can they afford it if somebody has no chance at all of even placing, how can they sacrifice that money, that time, that effort to come up and race against, the best in the world? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can tell you when the guy hits the road, yeah, it's a lot of money. You're going to be a lot of hotel rooms. You're going to do a lot of this. You're going to have vehicle breakdowns. And I've had many mushers call me and ask me, well, what about the trip? But I tell them, you hit the road, you take a big, deep breath everywhere across this great country, through Canada, into the Yukon, into Alaska. The views are awesome. You go through Fort Nelson, you got issues. Terry Streep will be the first guy out there to give you a hand, tell you stop by and trade. You get in the mountains through the Yukon, through British Columbia, and the views are something that you never forget in your life. But I tell you, sometimes I get choked up about this, but when you go out, the starting line at the Rendezvous, or the Open North American, or the Limited North American, and you go down that trail, the trail that so many mushers, great mushers, have been on, and you compete at that trail, you watch your dogs, and it doesn't matter what's behind you, what's in front of you, it's what your dogs are doing at that moment. So really, I think that's for anybody any level. It's the thrill of going down the Tudor Road, go down Cordova Hill. Hell, coming up Cordova Hill is like something you'll never forget. Going down at Jeff Studer track, down that hill, coming up to that famous clubhouse and seeing the pictures in there, that's what really is the heritage of the sport. And I think really when you head back south, it's something that you'll always remember. It's in your heart. It's in your soul at that time.
Right, yeah, I can only imagine, and I've raced on a few of those tracks, and I'm a distance and an expedition type guy, but I still get goosebumps, and I'm sure people that are listening, they're thinking about a visit to Lambeau Field or to where the Red Sox play or whatever, just going into those hallowed grounds and seeing all the history and just being a part of it. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
That's for sure. All those tracks, all those famous drivers that race there, the heritage of the sport. You're in the motherland of the sport, and when you get going, and for me, when I go through the border crossing into Canada, back into the U.S. again, I'm already thinking next year. I'm thinking, man, if I could only do this next year again, and that's what it's all about. And even if I could not do it, the memories, the mushers, the dogs, the teams that you see that were so impressive, the trails, sometimes they're so perfect that to do a sub 3-minute mile on a trail is like, it just makes you, it just gives you, like you say, goosebumps to think about that. I think if you pull any musher that goes to Alaska, I think they come away with that same feeling. It's really unreal how that happens.
Excellent. Ken, we're just about out of time. I like to ask the same question to all of our guests, and that is, if a person comes up to you and they want to get involved with the sport, whether it's in sprint mushing or dry land or whatever, what would be one piece of advice you would give to that person?
Don't look at your bank account. Because I'm telling you, once you get hooked, it doesn't matter what you have into it. It's just one of those things that you have to do it for your soul and what makes you feel good.
Wow, that's good stuff for sure. KP, anything in closing?
No, Ken, wanted to thank you, buddy, to share the last 30 minutes with us. He's right. You get bit by this bug, and it becomes part of your family, part of your soul, like he said, and he's extremely passionate about it, as we are all. And it's interesting because we talk to a lot of people, and it seems the world, among the world, you talk to people in Germany, in Finland, and Norway, and all of that. It seems like the Alaskan world comes in mind immediately when you're talking about the Mecca, the motherland, and we'll see you in a couple months here, buddy, and keep on trucking, and I hope you have good trails, and we'll be chatting with you in the next couple of days.
Yep, and like I say to my brother from another mother, I love you much, and we'll hope to see you good, soon, and hope everybody has good dog training, and have a great season. So see you soon.
All right, take care.
So on behalf of our guest today, Ken Chezik, this is Robert with my co-host KP, and this is the Dog Driver Show. Be sure to check us out on dogworksradio.com. Search for us on social media by searching for Dogworks Radio. And if you have a musher that you would like to hear on our show, shoot us a line, and we'll make sure that they get us on our schedule. People are calling like crazy, wanting to be interviewed by us on this show, and I'm looking forward to many more sessions here with KP. KP, thanks a lot. We'll talk again soon.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by First Paw Coffee Company. Learn more at firstpaw.coffee.
From First Paw Media, this is the Dog Driver Show. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find a link on the episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art, and you can see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too. Your hosts are Robert Forto and Parto. Our producer is Robert Forto and created for First Paw Media.